Catchy. English presents a new lesson with Emma. Today, we are going to focus on one of the most essential skills for anyone learning English, building natural fluent sentences that capture attention and keep your audience engaged. Many learners struggle with this because they know grammar and vocabulary, but still sound like they are reading from a textbook. Their sentences are correct, but they lack flow, emotion, and connection. This is the moment where English stops being just a set of rules and becomes a tool for expressing ideas clearly, confidently, and engagingly. At the B1 level, many learners speak in simple sentences. I went to the store. I bought apples. I met my friend. Technically, nothing is wrong with these sentences. Each one is correct on its own. However, when strung together, they feel mechanical, robotic, and disconnected. They don't tell a story, and they don't make the listener want to hear more. The goal of today's lesson is to transform these simple sequences into smooth flowing and professional English. For example, instead of saying, I went to the store, I bought apples. I met my friend. You could say, I went to the store to buy some apples. And on the way, I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in months. It was such a pleasant surprise. Suddenly, your sentences feel alive. They tell a story, and they draw the listener into your experience. One of the keys to achieving this is mastering sentence connectors. Connectors are words or phrases that link ideas, sentences, and paragraphs, making your speech or writing more cohesive and natural. At a basic level, learners use and, but, so, and because. These words are useful, but they are limited. At higher levels, you need more precise, versatile, and elegant alternatives. These not only connect your ideas, but also add nuance and meaning. For example, instead of simply saying, and you can use moreover, furthermore, in addition, or as well as, each choice subtly changes the tone of your sentence. Instead of, but you can say, however, nevertheless, or on the other hand. These words make your contrast stronger, clearer, and more sophisticated. Similarly, instead of, so you might use therefore as a result. Or thus. Each alternative carries a slightly different emphasis, and choosing the right one shows mastery of English beyond the basic level. Let's take a closer look at examples. A basic sentence might be, I studied hard and I passed the test. Using a connector, you could say, I studied diligently. Moreover, my consistent practice helped me pass the test with confidence. Notice the shift in tone and clarity. The connector not only links the sentences, but also emphasizes your effort and its impact. Or instead of, I was tired but I kept working, you can say I was exhausted. Nevertheless, I pushed through and completed the task. The word nevertheless adds resilience and determination to your sentence. Connectors are not just about linking two sentences. They also guide your audience through your ideas logically. Imagine explaining a process at B1. You might say, I woke up. I took a shower. I ate breakfast. It works, but it's plain and simple. At a higher level, you could say, after waking up, I took a quick shower to refresh myself, and then I enjoyed a healthy breakfast to start my day energized. Suddenly, your sentences flow smoothly, and your listener can picture each step clearly. Contrast is another crucial area. At B1, learners often say, I like coffee, but I don't like tea. While correct, it's basic. At a more advanced level, you could say, I enjoy coffee, whereas I find tea too bitter for my taste. Or, the event was enjoyable. However, some parts felt repetitive. These subtle changes add sophistication, making your speech or writing more persuasive and nuanced. cause and effect, connectors are equally important. Instead of saying, "It rained, so I stayed home," you could say, "Due to the persistent rain, I chose to stay home, which gave me the chance to finish reading my book." Words like due to, as a result of, therefore, and consequently allow you to show logic and reasoning, making your English more professional and natural. For example, the company faced unexpected challenges. Consequently, the team had to revise its strategy. This sentence not only shows cause and effect, but also presents your ideas in a clear, sophisticated way. Another skill advanced learners use is emphasis. Sometimes you want your listener to notice a key point. At B1, you might say, "I like this book. It is interesting." At higher levels, you could say, "I particularly appreciate this book because it provides deep insights into human behavior." Words like "indeed, notably," and "above all" help highlight your main ideas. For instance, the project was demanding. Indeed, it challenged the entire team's problem-solving abilities. Small words like these can make your sentences stand out and feel compelling. Finally, think about paragraph cohesion. At B1, a paragraph might look like this. I went to the park. I saw a dog. I played football. I went home. All the ideas are there, but it feels disjointed. At an advanced level, you could write, I spent the afternoon at the park where I encountered a playful dog. Later, I joined a group to play football, and after an energetic session, I returned home feeling refreshed and happy. Each sentence flows naturally into the next, creating a story-like experience for the reader. To practice, take 5 simple sentences from your life and try connecting them using different types of connectors. Start with sequencing words, then add contrast, cause and effect, and emphasis. Each time you practice, your English will become more fluid, natural, and engaging. By mastering connectors, logical sequencing, and emphasis, you are taking a crucial step toward advanced English speaking and writing. Your sentences will sound smoother, more professional, and more persuasive. Listeners and readers will stay interested because your ideas flow naturally and your stories come alive. Once you understand the power of connectors and smooth sentence flow, the next step is learning how to tell a story in English that captures attention from the very first sentence. Storytelling is a skill that every advanced English learner should develop because it keeps your listener or reader engaged. Whether you are speaking in a casual conversation, presenting in class, or recording a video, storytelling transforms ordinary English into captivating English. At the B1 level, many learners simply recount events. Yesterday, I went to the mall. I bought a dress. I saw a friend. While these sentences are grammatically correct, they lack energy, suspense, and connection. Storytelling is not just about listing events. It's about creating an experience for your audience. You want them to feel like they are walking alongside you, experiencing the moment as you did. One of the most important techniques in storytelling is setting the scene. This means describing where and when something happens, giving enough detail to make the listener visualize it. Instead of saying, I went to the park, you could say, yesterday afternoon, I wandered into the quiet park near my house where the sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Instantly, your audience can picture the park and feel the calm, serene atmosphere. Small details like colors, sounds, and smells make your storytelling more vivid and memorable. Next, focus on introducing characters and emotions. In English, advanced speakers often combine actions and feelings in one sentence to make the story more engaging. For example, I met a friend at the coffee shop is simple, but I bumped into my old friend at the coffee shop, and I couldn't hide my excitement when I saw her smile. Adds emotion and personality. Notice how the phrase couldn't hide my excitement immediately conveys feelings, making the listener connect with the story emotionally. Another key element is building suspense or curiosity. You can do this by hinting at what happens next without giving it away immediately. At B1, learners might say, "I found a wallet on the street. I returned it to the owner. It's fine, but it's not gripping." At a higher level, you could say, "While walking down the street, I noticed a small wallet lying on the pavement. I wondered who it belonged to and what I should do next." By adding, "I wondered who it belonged to," you create curiosity. Your audience wants to hear what happens next, which keeps them engaged. In storytelling, varying sentence length and structure is another advanced technique. Beginners often speak in short, repetitive sentences, which can sound monotonous. For example, I woke up. I ate breakfast. I went to school. I met my friend. While correct, it's boring. At a higher level, you could say, "After waking up and enjoying a quick breakfast, I headed to school where I unexpectedly ran into my friend, and we spent the morning laughing and sharing stories." The mixture of long and short sentences combined with connecting words like after and where makes your story dynamic and engaging. Dialogue is also a powerful tool in storytelling. At B1, learners rarely include dialogue because they feel unsure about quoting speech. However, dialogue adds realism and personality to your story. For example, instead of saying, "I talked to my friend about the test," you could say, "I saw my friend and asked, 'Did you study for the test?' She smiled and replied, 'Yes, and I'm still nervous.'" Dialogue allows your audience to hear different voices, making the story more lively and interactive. Another technique is using cause and effect to drive your story forward. Stories are more interesting when events are connected logically. For example, instead of saying, "It rained," I stayed home, you could say, "It started raining unexpectedly, so I stayed home and decided to finally finish the book I had been putting off for weeks." This not only explains the reason, but also shows the result, making your storytelling logical and satisfying. Additionally, adding personal reflections or lessons can make your story meaningful. Many learners focus only on events, forgetting that advanced storytelling often includes insights. For example, "I visited the museum. I saw many paintings" is purely descriptive. A more advanced version would be, "I visited the museum and admired the paintings, and I realized how much art can inspire new ideas and creativity." Personal reflections give depth, making your story more memorable and leaving the audience with something to think about. Finally, practice combining all these techniques in a short story. Start by setting the scene. Introduce characters and emotions, build suspense, vary sentence structure, include dialogue, show cause and effect, and end with a reflection or insight. With practice, your English will sound not only correct, but also captivating, natural, and professional. This is the kind of English that keeps viewers, listeners, or readers engaged until the very end. By mastering storytelling, you are not only improving your grammar and vocabulary, but also developing the ability to communicate ideas clearly and engagingly, a skill that advanced learners and native speakers use every day. Once you have learned how to tell a compelling story in English, the next step is mastering advanced vocabulary and expressions that make your English sound natural and fluent. At the B1 level, learners often rely on basic words repeating good, bad, happy, or sad. While these words are correct, they do not convey the depth, nuance, or emotion that more advanced learners or native speakers express effortlessly. Expanding your vocabulary and learning contextual phrases can transform ordinary sentences into rich, engaging English. The key is not just learning single words, but phrases and collocations that are commonly used by native speakers. For example, instead of saying, "I was very happy," you could say, "I was over the moon," or "I was thrilled beyond words." Both phrases instantly add energy and personality to your sentence. Similarly, instead of "I was very tired," you could say, "I was completely drained," or "I felt utterly exhausted." These small changes make a huge difference in how natural your English sounds. Next, focus on idiomatic expressions. Idioms are tricky because they cannot be understood literally, but they are widely used in everyday English. For example, "hit the nail on the head" means to describe something accurately, not literally hitting a nail. Using idioms appropriately makes your English sound like a native speaker's and adds flair to your storytelling. At the B1 level, learners often avoid idioms because they are afraid of making mistakes. But learning just a few and practicing them in context can make a noticeable difference. Another important aspect is phrasal verbs. Phrasal verbs are verbs combined with prepositions or adverbs such as look up to, carry out, run into, or get over. While beginners often avoid them because they seem confusing, phrasal verbs are extremely common in casual conversation media and online content. For example, instead of saying, "I admire my teacher," you could say, "I look up to my teacher." Instead of "I completed the task," you could say, "I carried out the task." By learning phrasal verbs and practicing them naturally, your spoken and written English will feel much more authentic. At this stage, linking words and connectors are also essential for creating smooth flowing sentences. Words like "however," "therefore," "in addition," "as a result," and on the other hand, allow you to connect ideas logically and clearly. For example, instead of saying "I was tired," "I went to the gym," you could say, "I was tired. However, I still went to the gym to keep up my routine." This small change adds professionalism and natural rhythm to your English, making it easier for listeners to follow your story or explanation. Another technique to sound more natural is using descriptive adjectives and adverbs creatively. Instead of basic adjectives like nice or beautiful, try stunning, breathtaking, or remarkable. Instead of basic adverbs like quickly or slowly, try swiftly, gracefully, or reluctantly. Adding rich descriptive words brings your sentences to life and helps the listener visualize exactly what you mean. It's also important to practice using synonyms to avoid repetition. Repeating the same words makes English sound flat and uninteresting. For example, instead of using happy multiple times, alternate with joyful, delighted, or ecstatic. This technique not only improves your vocabulary, but also makes your storytelling or explanation more engaging, keeping the listener interested throughout. Another advanced tip is to use figurative language such as metaphors and similes, which paint a vivid picture in your listener's mind. For example, instead of saying, "It was very hot outside," you could say, "The sun blazed like a roaring fire, making the streets shimmer in the heat." Figurative language transforms ordinary descriptions into memorable, impactful sentences that stick with your audience. Finally, remember that context is key. Advanced vocabulary idioms and phrasal verbs are effective only when used in the right context. Reading, listening to podcasts, watching TV shows, and paying attention to how native speakers use language will help you understand when and how to apply these expressions naturally. The goal is not just to memorize words, but to internalize them so that your English flows effortlessly in conversation or storytelling. By consistently practicing advanced vocabulary idioms, phrasal verbs, descriptive language, and figurative expressions, you will develop English that is not only correct, but vibrant, engaging, and natural, the kind of English that captures attention and keeps listeners or viewers hooked from start to finish. This is a crucial step towards speaking English like a confident, fluent speaker. Once you have mastered advanced vocabulary idioms, phrasal verbs, and descriptive language, the next crucial skill is pronunciation and intonation. Many learners at the B1 level can form sentences correctly, use rich vocabulary, and even tell stories, but their message sometimes loses impact because of pronunciation issues or flat intonation. Pronunciation is not only about saying words correctly, it is also about how your voice rises and falls, how you stress certain words, and how you pace your sentences to sound natural and engaging. A common challenge for learners is stress patterns in words. English words often have a stressed syllable, and misplacing stress can make a word hard to recognize or even change its meaning. For example, the word record is stressed on the first syllable when it is a noun. As in, I bought a new record, but stressed on the second syllable when it is a verb, as in, I need to record this video. Practicing these subtle changes makes your English sound polished and professional. Another aspect is sentence stress and rhythm. In English, not every word is stressed equally. Content words like nouns, main verbs, adjectives, and adverbs carry the stress, while function. Words like prepositions, articles, and auxiliary verbs are usually unstressed. For instance, in the sentence, I went to the market to buy fresh vegetables, the stressed words are went market, buy fresh and vegetables. Correct stress patterns make your speech more fluid and easier to understand for native listeners. Intonation is equally important. English uses rising and falling tones to convey different meanings and emotions. A rising tone at the end of a sentence often signals a question, uncertainty, or continuation, while a falling tone signals completion, confidence, or finality. For example, saying, "You're coming with a rising tone" invites confirmation, while saying it with a falling tone sounds more like a statement. Mastering intonation adds emotion, nuance, and clarity to your speech, making it more engaging and pleasant to listen to. Pacing and pausing are also key. Speaking too quickly can make your English hard to follow, while speaking too slowly may feel unnatural. Strategic pauses allow your listeners to absorb information, emphasize important points, and create suspense or anticipation when telling a story. For example, when telling a story, pausing right before a surprising event or a punchline builds excitement and keeps your audience hooked. Listening and imitation are powerful tools for improving pronunciation. Watch English movies, TV shows, or YouTube videos, and pay attention to how native speakers stress words, use intonation, and pause naturally. Then try to imitate not only the words, but also the rhythm tone and emotional delivery. Shadowing exercises where you repeat immediately after a native speaker are extremely effective. The goal is to internalize the sounds and patterns so that they become second nature. Another tip is to focus on difficult sounds specific to English. For many learners, sounds like thee and think, or this the difference between V and W, or the subtle vowel differences in ship and sheep can be challenging. Practicing these sounds daily, ideally in context, will make your English more precise and easier for native speakers to understand. Connecting pronunciation with body language and facial expression also enhances your communication. Native speakers naturally use gestures, facial expressions, and posture to support their words. For instance, raising your eyebrows when asking a question or leaning forward slightly to emphasize a point can reinforce your message. Even though your voice is the main tool incorporating subtle body language, makes your speech more dynamic and relatable. Finally, remember that confidence is the secret ingredient. Even if you make minor pronunciation mistakes, speaking with confidence, correct pacing, and expressive intonation makes your English persuasive and engaging. Listeners respond more to how you deliver your message than to perfection in every word. Over time, as your vocabulary, idioms, phrasing, and pronunciation improve together, your English will not only be fluent and natural, but also captivating and memorable. By practicing pronunciation, intonation, rhythm pacing, and expressive delivery consistently, you will unlock the full power of your English. You will not only speak correctly, but also speak in a way that draws your listeners in, keeps their attention, and leaves a lasting impression. This step is essential for taking your English from competent to truly compelling, especially for storytelling presentations or any situation where you want your audience fully engaged. Once you have honed your pronunciation, intonation, and expressive delivery, the next key skill to focus on is listening comprehension and understanding natural English in real life. Many learners struggle because they know grammar and vocabulary, but cannot fully understand native speakers when they speak at natural speed. Improving your listening skills is not only about hearing words, it's about recognizing patterns, predicting meaning, and connecting ideas in real time. One of the most effective ways to enhance listening is through active listening practice. Instead of passively watching or listening to English content, engage with it. Pause, repeat, and ask yourself questions. What did the speaker mean? Which phrases were used to express emotions? How did the speaker structure their sentences? This active engagement forces your brain to process the language more deeply, turning passive exposure into real learning. Another technique is listening for gist versus listening for details. Sometimes focusing on understanding every single word can be overwhelming. Instead, try to capture the general meaning first, then go back and focus on specific words or phrases. For example, when watching a short story, you might first try to understand the plot and the main events. And in a second, notice idioms, phrasal verbs, and expressions. This layered approach helps your brain process information efficiently without getting lost. Connecting. Listening with context and culture is also crucial. Native speakers often use cultural references, slang humor, and implied meanings. Understanding these elements not only improves comprehension, but also makes your English sound more natural when you respond. For instance, phrases like break the ice or hit the nail on the head carry cultural meaning that goes beyond literal translation. Learning context and usage allows you to predict meaning and respond appropriately in conversations. Subtitles and transcripts are excellent tools for bridging the gap between listening and understanding. Start by listening without subtitles to challenge your brain. Then check with subtitles or transcripts to catch what you missed. Gradually reduce reliance on subtitles until you can comprehend content at normal speed. Podcasts, audiobooks, and YouTube videos tailored for English learners are particularly effective because they often include repetition, clear enunciation, and engaging topics. Shadowing is another powerful technique for improving both listening and speaking simultaneously. This involves listening to a sentence or short passage and immediately repeating it, trying to match the speaker's pronunciation rhythm, intonation, and emotion. Shadowing trains your ear to recognize sounds in real time and helps your mouth produce them naturally, bridging the gap between comprehension and production. Exposure to different accents and speaking styles is also essential. English is a global language, and learners often encounter British American, Australian, Canadian, and other accents. Listening to a variety of accents trains your ear to adapt, making comprehension easier in real-world situations. You don't have to understand every word. Initially focus on recognizing key words, sentence patterns, and the speaker's intent. Over time, your brain will naturally adjust to different pronunciations and rhythms. Improving listening also enhances your vocabulary and grammar subconsciously. As you expose yourself to authentic English, you absorb idiomatic expressions, collocations, and sentence structures without explicitly studying them. For example, hearing phrases like, "I can't wait to see you," or "She ran out of time" repeatedly helps you understand how native speakers naturally combine words and express ideas. This unconscious absorption makes your own speech more fluent and natural. Finally, combining listening with speaking practice ensures that comprehension translates into active use. After listening to a story, try retelling it in your own words, summarizing the main points or predicting what might happen next. Discuss the content with friends or record yourself explaining it. This process reinforces listening comprehension, strengthens memory, and improves the ability to respond spontaneously in English conversations. By integrating active listening context, understanding exposure to different accents, and shadowing into your daily practice, you will develop a strong adaptive listening skill that allows you to follow natural speech effortlessly. This skill not only boosts your confidence in conversations, but also accelerates your overall English fluency. Listening well is the foundation of real-world communication, and mastering it bridges the gap between knowledge and true conversational ability. After mastering listening skills, the next essential step in becoming fluent in English is developing advanced speaking skills and the ability to express ideas clearly and confidently. Many learners feel that knowing grammar and vocabulary is enough, but without the ability to convey thoughts naturally, communication remains limited. Speaking fluently requires not just vocabulary knowledge, but rhythm flow and the ability to think in English rather than translating from your native language. One of the most effective strategies to improve speaking is through structured practice combined with spontaneous speaking exercises. Structured practice includes activities like repeating sentences, practicing dialogues, and using sentence patterns in controlled scenarios. Spontaneous practice involves responding in real time, sharing opinions, or telling stories without prior preparation. Both are necessary structured exercises, build accuracy and confidence, while spontaneous practice develops fluidity and adaptability. Thinking in English is a critical habit that separates intermediate learners from advanced speakers. When you constantly translate in your head, speech slows down and errors increase. To practice thinking directly in English, start with simple daily thoughts. For instance, narrate your day to yourself in English. Describe what you are seeing, or plan your tasks using English sentences. Over time, this internal dialogue strengthens your brain's ability to formulate English sentences naturally and quickly. Fluency is about connecting ideas smoothly. Native speakers rarely speak in isolated words. They use linking words, discourse markers, and natural pauses to structure thoughts. Phrases like, on the other hand, as a result, or to be honest, create cohesion and make your speech sound professional. Practicing these expressions in context rather than memorizing them in isolation helps you use them effortlessly during conversation. Pronunciation, intonation, and stress are equally important in advanced speaking. Even with perfect grammar, poor pronunciation can make you difficult to understand. Focus on key elements, sentence stress, intonation patterns, and linking sounds. For example, in the phrase, I'm going to the store, native speakers often reduce going to gonna. Mimicking these patterns not only improves comprehension, but also makes your speech more natural and engaging. A powerful technique for improving speaking is role-playing real-life scenarios. Imagine situations like ordering food at a restaurant, negotiating at work, or explaining a problem to a friend. Practice multiple variations in responses, then gradually increase complexity by adding emotions, humor, or persuasion. Role-playing bridges the gap between theoretical knowledge and real-world application, preparing you to respond effectively in actual conversations. Recording yourself and self-evaluation is another highly effective method. When you record your speech, you gain awareness of pronunciation rhythm and grammar mistakes that are otherwise unnoticed. Compare your recordings with native speakers. Notice differences and practice corrections. Over time, this feedback loop significantly enhances both accuracy and confidence. Interaction with native speakers is invaluable. While self-study is essential, real conversations push you to adapt to unpredictable responses and different accents. Online language exchange platforms, discussion groups, or casual conversations with friends offer practical experience that cannot be replicated by textbooks alone. Each conversation strengthens listening, speaking, and cultural understanding simultaneously. Expanding your expressive range is another critical aspect of advanced speaking. Fluency is not just about speech. It's about expressing ideas with nuance and emotion. Learn to use adjectives, adverbs, and idiomatic expressions naturally. Practice conveying attitudes such as surprise, doubt, enthusiasm, or skepticism. For instance, instead of simply saying, I like it, you could say, I absolutely love it, or it's not really my favorite, but I can see why people enjoy it. This adds depth and authenticity to your speech. Lastly, consistency and variety in practice ensure continuous improvement. Dedicate time daily to speaking, but vary your exercises. Some days focus on shadowing and repeating native speakers, other days on storytelling or role play, and other days on debating or discussing complex topics. Variety prevents stagnation and keeps your learning engaging, while regularity reinforces neural pathways, making fluent speaking more automatic. By combining structured practice, spontaneous speaking, thinking in English, role-playing interaction with native speakers, and conscious improvement of pronunciation and expressiveness, you develop speaking skills that are natural, confident, and adaptable. Advanced speaking is not about perfection. It's about communication clarity and the ability to convey your personality through language. Mastering this skill allows you to participate fully in conversations, express opinions freely, and enjoy real-life interactions in English with confidence. After developing advanced speaking skills, the next step in becoming truly fluent is enhancing your reading comprehension and vocabulary acquisition through purposeful exposure to authentic materials. Many English learners focus mainly on grammar exercises or simple texts, but real fluency requires engaging with materials that native speakers actually read, such as news articles, blogs, short stories, and professional publications. Reading widely exposes you to natural sentence structures, idiomatic expressions, and cultural nuances that are rarely taught in textbooks. To start, choose reading materials that balance challenge and comprehension. If a text is too difficult, you'll feel frustrated and fail to retain new words. If it's too easy, you won't encounter anything new. Aim for materials where you understand roughly 70 to 80% of the content without constant dictionary use. Highlight new words or phrases, then write them down in context, not just as isolated translations. For example, instead of writing, improve Eels Scythian right. She worked hard to improve her English skills. Seeing words in context helps your brain store them more effectively and recall them naturally during speaking or writing. Active reading is key to truly internalizing vocabulary and grammar. Rather than passively reading, ask yourself questions about the text. What is the main idea? What is the author's opinion? Which words or phrases are repeated and why? Summarize paragraphs in your own words or explain them aloud. This approach transforms reading from a passive activity into a dynamic exercise that improves comprehension, memory, and speaking simultaneously. Vocabulary learning strategies make a huge difference in long-term retention. One of the most effective methods is spaced repetition. Use apps or flashcards to review words at increasing intervals, reinforcing memory over time. Another strategy is semantic mapping, which involves grouping words by topic or relationship. For instance, if learning words about travel, connect words like itinerary, reservation, boarding pass, and customs in your mind. This creates mental networks that make retrieval faster and more natural during conversation. Contextual guessing is another essential skill. When encountering unknown words in a text, try to infer meaning from surrounding sentences rather than immediately reaching for a dictionary. This trains your brain to recognize patterns and meanings naturally, which is exactly how native speakers read. Over time, this skill reduces your dependence on translation and improves reading speed and comprehension. Intensive reading and extensive reading serve different purposes, but are both important. Intensive reading focuses on detailed understanding grammar and vocabulary in short passages. Extensive reading involves longer texts or books read for general understanding and enjoyment. Both complement each other. Intensive reading strengthens accuracy and attention to detail, while extensive reading builds fluency, confidence, and exposure to natural language use. Another powerful technique is shadow reading or echo reading. As you read aloud, try to mimic the intonation, stress, and rhythm of native speakers, especially if you're reading news articles or dialogue-heavy stories. This not only improves pronunciation, but also links reading with speaking fluency. You'll notice that words and expressions you encounter in reading begin to appear naturally in your speech. Diverse reading sources expand both language and cultural knowledge. Explore different genres: fiction, nonfiction, science, business, lifestyle, and even humor. Each genre exposes you to specific vocabulary, sentence structures, and styles. For instance, novels often include colloquial language and dialogue, while academic texts focus on precise grammar and formal expressions. By diversifying your reading, you prepare your brain to understand and respond to English in all contexts. Connecting reading with other skills maximizes efficiency. After reading, try summarizing the material orally or writing a short reflection. Discuss the content with friends, teachers, or online communities. This integration turns passive reading into active learning and reinforces memory while improving speaking and writing skills. Finally, consistency is crucial. Set aside dedicated reading time daily, even if only 20-30 minutes. Over weeks and months, small, consistent practice accumulates into significant progress. Remember, advanced reading is not just about understanding every word. It's about grasping meaning, recognizing patterns, and absorbing language naturally. By combining carefully chosen materials, active reading techniques, structured vocabulary learning, and integration with speaking and writing, you develop reading skills that enhance your overall English fluency. This not only allows you to understand authentic texts effortlessly, but also equips you with the words, phrases, and ideas to express yourself naturally in conversation and writing. At this stage, English stops feeling like a foreign language and becomes a tool for thinking, learning, and connecting with the world. After strengthening your reading skills, the next critical step in achieving fluency is listening comprehension. Because understanding spoken English in real-life contexts is often the most challenging skill for learners. Many students can read and write well, but struggle when native speakers talk quickly. Use slang or mix formal and informal expressions. To bridge this gap, you need consistent exposure to diverse listening materials and deliberate practice techniques. Start by selecting listening content that matches your current level, but gradually challenges you. Podcasts, YouTube channels, news broadcasts, audiobooks, and TED Talks are excellent resources. For learners aiming at fluency, it's essential to hear English as it is naturally spoken with all its contractions, intonation patterns, and casual expressions. Passive listening alone isn't enough. You need active listening strategies to internalize what you hear and connect it with your speaking ability. One highly effective method is focused listening with transcript analysis. First, listen to a short segment without reading the transcript. Try to catch each main idea's keywords and tone. Then read the transcript while listening again, noting new vocabulary, idiomatic expressions, or pronunciation features. Finally, replay the audio and shadow it by mimicking the speaker's rhythm, intonation, and stress patterns. This process improves comprehension, pronunciation, and the natural use of expressions simultaneously. Shadowing is particularly powerful. Unlike repeating after a pause, shadowing involves speaking almost simultaneously with the speaker, matching their pace, tone, and pronunciation as closely as possible. Although it feels difficult at first, consistent practice trains your brain and mouth to process English in real time, improving listening speed, pronunciation, and even confidence in conversation. Diverse listening sources are essential for well-rounded fluency. News programs enhance vocabulary related to politics, science, and global events. Podcasts cover informal conversation storytelling and debates, exposing you to natural expressions, pauses, and emphasis. Movies, TV shows, and vlogs provide dialogue-heavy, culturally rich content that shows how English is used in everyday life. By combining different formats, your brain becomes adept at understanding multiple accents, speaking speeds, and contexts. Another effective strategy is listening for patterns and chunks rather than individual words. Native speakers rarely speak word by word. They use phrases, collocations, and sentence chunks. By recognizing these patterns, your comprehension improves drastically, and you begin to think in English rather than translating mentally. For example, instead of hearing, "I am going to the store," you learn to process it as one fluid chunk, which becomes faster and more natural in conversation. Active note-taking while listening further enhances retention. Write down key ideas, new vocabulary, and interesting expressions. Later, review your notes. Practice pronouncing new words and try to use the expressions in sentences of your own. This reinforces learning and ensures that new words and phrases move from short-term memory to long-term memory, ready for spontaneous use. Interactive listening is also very beneficial. Instead of just passively listening, pause the audio and try to predict what the speaker will say next, or answer questions about the content. This engages your brain, actively improving comprehension, anticipation skills, and overall listening agility. Similarly, discussing the content with a study partner or online community helps reinforce understanding and transforms passive listening into active language practice. Consistency and variety are key to long-term improvement. Set aside daily listening practice, even 20-30 minutes, and include materials slightly above your comfort level. Over time, your brain adapts to faster speech, unfamiliar accents, and complex ideas. Importantly, don't worry about understanding every single word at first. Focus on grasping main ideas, tone, and context, then gradually refine your comprehension of details. Integrating listening with speaking, reading, and writing solidifies fluency. For example, after listening to a podcast episode, summarize it aloud in your own words. Write a short reflection or discuss it with someone else. This process connects input and output, reinforcing vocabulary, grammar, and natural expression, while improving your ability to respond quickly and accurately in real conversations. Finally, mindset plays a critical role in listening success. Many learners feel discouraged when they can't understand everything. But the truth is that perfection is not the goal. Fluency is about effective communication, comprehension of main ideas, and the ability to respond naturally. Celebrate small victories, notice gradual improvements, and remain consistent. Every minute spent listening contributes to a stronger, faster, and more confident understanding of English. By combining structured listening practice, active shadowing, diverse content exposure, and integration with speaking and writing, you develop listening skills that allow you to understand natural English effortlessly. This skill not only boosts confidence in conversation, but also deepens your connection with the language culture and global ideas. At this stage, English begins to feel like a living, dynamic tool rather than a set of rules to memorize, enabling you to engage fully in conversations, media, and learning experiences. At this stage, after focusing on reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills, it's time to bring everything together with a comprehensive strategy for fluency. Achieving fluency is not about memorizing grammar rules or individual words. It's about building a natural, automatic ability to understand process and produce English in real-life situations. This final stage is where you transform your learning into confident, effective communication. First, let's address the integration of all skills. Reading exposes you to vocabulary, sentence structures, and contexts. Writing reinforces grammar and expression. Listening develops comprehension and natural speech patterns. Speaking converts passive knowledge into active communication. To become fluent, you must create cycles where all skills reinforce each other. For example, after reading an article, summarize it aloud, record yourself, and then write a short reflection. Listen to your recording notice areas for improvement and repeat the process with new materials. This iterative cycle strengthens memory fluency and confidence. Active engagement with content is essential. Passive exposure like listening to music or watching videos casually is helpful. But to progress rapidly, you need to interact with the material. Ask questions, predict what will happen next in a story, or try rewriting a dialogue with your own words. The goal is to think, speak, and write in English as you process input, not just absorb it. This deep engagement converts your learning into practical language skills. One of the most effective tools for fluency is shadowing and imitation across multiple formats. For example, after listening to a podcast episode, pick a short segment and imitate not only the words, but the tone, stress rhythm, and emotion. Then try shadowing a video clip or movie scene, matching gestures and intonation. This practice enhances listening pronunciation and natural speech patterns, simultaneously making your English sound more native-like. Over time, your brain starts processing English as a continuous stream, allowing you to respond spontaneously without hesitation. Another critical element is speaking practice with real or simulated interaction. Fluency is measured by how effectively you communicate, not by perfection. Speaking with native speakers, language exchange partners, or online tutors exposes you to unexpected questions, expressions, and accents. If live conversation is challenging, simulate dialogues by imagining scenarios or using speech-to-text apps. Role-playing everyday situations like ordering food, discussing a topic, or explaining your opinion builds confidence and prepares you for real-world interactions. Vocabulary and idiomatic expressions are also essential for fluency. By now, you should have a solid foundation from reading, listening, and writing. The next step is to actively expand and integrate vocabulary into speech. Instead of learning words in isolation, focus on collocations, phrases, and context-based usage. For instance, instead of memorizing the word, achieve learn phrases like achieve a goal, achieve success, or achieve balance. Using words in meaningful contexts improves recall and ensures your speech sounds natural. Fluency is also supported by thinking in English. Avoid translating from your native language in your head. It slows you down and makes speech unnatural. After consistent exposure and practice, your brain can process ideas directly in English. Start small. Narrate your daily routine in English silently, then aloud. Describe what you see around you, make mental plans, or summarize ideas from articles or podcasts. Gradually thinking in English will feel automatic, and your responses in conversation will be faster and more natural. Consistency and deliberate practice remain the most important factors. Even short daily sessions are better than infrequent long sessions. Aim to engage with English every day using a variety of skills. Read an article, write a reflection, listen to a podcast, shadow a speaker, and speak about what you learned. Rotate materials to include formal and informal language, different accents and topics outside your comfort zone. Over time, your brain adapts to diverse inputs and produces fluent, accurate, and confident output. Self-monitoring and reflection are key to continuous improvement. Record your speaking, review it, and note pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary usage. Track your progress in listening comprehension, writing fluency, and reading speed. Celebrate achievements and identify patterns where you can improve. Self-awareness turns learning from passive exposure into strategic improvement, accelerating your journey to fluency. Finally, fluency is about confidence, mindset, and persistence. Language learning is a long-term journey, and even advanced learners encounter challenges, unfamiliar vocabulary, and complex expressions. Embrace mistakes as opportunities to learn. Stay curious and maintain the belief that every small step contributes to mastery. Fluency is not a final destination. It's the ability to navigate real-life communication effortlessly and express yourself authentically in English. By now, after months or years of consistent focused practice in reading, writing, listening, and speaking, you can start to experience English as a living, dynamic tool rather than a set of rules to memorize. You understand idioms follow conversations in real time. Express opinions clearly and engage with content from global sources. Your fluency allows you to learn faster, connect with people worldwide, and explore opportunities in study, work, and travel. The key takeaway is that fluency is the combination of skill, practice, and mindset. Structured practice, integrated skills, diverse content, active engagement, and self-monitoring are the pillars of success. Think of English as a lifelong companion that you can interact with daily. The more you engage, the more naturally it becomes part of your thinking, speaking, and understanding. This is the ultimate goal: effortless, confident, and adaptable English that serves you in any situation. By implementing all these strategies consistently, you can reach a level where English is no longer a challenge, but a tool to express ideas, connect with others, and explore the world. Your journey to fluency is ongoing, but each step builds momentum. Every sentence you read, every word you write, every conversation you have, and every audio you listen to brings you closer to English fluency. Turning effort into a lifelong skill and opening doors to endless opportunities.